Most of you hopefully found on your chairs when you came in these small packets with a picture of one of the hostages and that person's name and 2 Shabbat candles together with it. Please take them home with you. Please share them with your communities. Please light these Shabbat candles that I brought from Jerusalem wherever you live, and think about just one person, and from that person to that person's family and community and people, which is our people and our humanity. And you might have received also these bracelets to put on your hands, calling for the release of the hostages. יהי רצון שנזכה להיות מרבים בשמחה בחודש הזה. May it be your will that we merit to increase the joy in this month. שמחה של יחד, שמחה של נתינה, שמחה של הודיה על הטוב המתגלה בעולם. The joy of being together, the joy of giving, the joy of gratitude for the goodness that is revealed in the world. יהי רצון שנשכיל להבין את גילוייו השונים של הכאב. May it be your will that we're able to understand the different manifestations of sorrow, השבר, האבל, הדאגה, האכזבה, להכיר בהם, להקשיב להם, לחבק אותם. Brokenness, grief, worry, disappointment, to acknowledge them, to listen to them, to embrace them. יהי רצון שנוכל להכיל את הצרכים השונים השוכנים בקהילה אחת. May it be your will that we're able to hold together the diverse needs within one community. לבכות ולצחוק, לספוד ולרקוד, לחוג כתמיד ולשבת בדד, לדום. To cry and to laugh, to mourn and to dance, to celebrate as always, and to sit alone in silence. יהי רצון שיתקיים בנו. כבר בחודש הזה ממש, ונהפוך הוא. May it be your will that already in this month of Adar Bet and Ramadan, we witness a real ונהפוך הוא, turning reality in a new direction, not of killing, fighting, and destruction, but of salvation, demanding goodness, words of peace and truth. לא של הרג, חרב ואובדן חלילה, אלא של הצלה, דרישת טוב, דברי שלום ואמת. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. So we were asked to talk about the day after. And in the last few days, being already in the States, being for Shabbat in Boston, 2 verses or 2 quotes from the Tefillah came before my eyes, bringing 2 different feelings that many of us feel these days about the present and about the future. On Shabbat, the words that struck me the most in the Tefillah were not easy ones. You remember the words, Ve'al titshenu Adonai Eloheinu lanetzach. How do you translate these words? We had a session of translating the Chumash, right? Ve'al titshenu Adonai Eloheinu lanetzach. What does the word lanetzach refer to in this phrase? God, don't ever forsake us? Or God, don't you forsake us forever? It's not the same thing. I'm going to refer to a few people in my congregation in my words. And the first one of them, her name is Esther. She's 87 years old. She teaches Torah class every other week for 12 years now. She's incredible. And she comes to me every other week with a suggestion for an alternative haftarah for the next Shabbat. A different reading that we can have from the Nevi'im or from the Ketuvim to understand 2 weeks from now, Torah portion in a different way. And 2 years ago or so, when we were in the middle of COVID, and I met with her and I spoke with her, and thanks to her, we still have twice a week morning meditation on Zoom, because even now that we're allowed to be in the synagogue, but with that pace that we've created during COVID of meeting on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9:30 in the morning for a morning meditation, we're still doing it, having more than a minyan on most of these days. But I remember sitting with Esther in her home, and her main, and the way she looked at reality and Hayom She'achrei, the day after, she said, I know the cure is going to be found. I know we're going to get over COVID. I'm just not sure I'm going to be there. Ve'al tichenu Adonai Eloheinu lanetzach. This feeling of my personal netzach, my personal ever, I feel that I'm already forsaken in it. And maybe this is going to be the reality. Esther was feeling like that during COVID. I think she feels like that again right now, these days. But when we were saying the Hallel here, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. The verse of Lo amut ki echyeh came to me from the Hallel as an answer to my feeling on Shabbat morning of Ve'al tichenu Adonai Eloheinu lanetzach. Insisting on this Lo amut ki echyeh. Va'asaper ma'aseya. I will not die, I will live, and I will tell the deeds of God. Now, obviously, we all know we're not going to live forever. But as a mental source of strength to ourselves, Lo amut ki echyeh. Thinking about the day after, I'm also thinking about the manager of Kol HaNeshama. Her name is Anna. Her cousin is Karina Arayev. She's one of the women soldiers kidnapped from the Nachal Oz base on October 7th. For many, 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 many awful weeks, Anna's uncle and aunt, Karina's parents, and the whole family, which is a rather small Ukrainian family, Ukrainian Jews, didn't know anything about Karina and what's her situation. 3 weeks ago, the Hamas released a short film with 3 women talking. One of them was Karina. That's the first time they received any message, if we could call it like that. When Anna is thinking about the day after, Hayom She'acharei, there is no Yom She'acharei without Karina coming home. Karina's parents, Anna's aunt and uncle, told her that very explicitly. If she doesn't come home, there is no day after. And we try as a community to be there with Anna and her family the whole time through. And when we say the whole time through, it means that weeks ago, too many weeks ago, when the hostages, the first groups of hostages were released, every time a group of hostages came back home and Karina was not amongst them, we were rejoicing with the families who received their loved one back home, but we were in pain with Anna's family with Karina's family and the families of all the hostages who are still waiting and have no idea and had no idea until the group of people came off the Hamas vehicle and still have no idea. Nati is not a member of our congregation. She's definitely a very, very close friend of our congregation. She's not a member of our congregation because she lives on Kibbutz Or HaNer, a few kilometers from Gaza. The next kibbutz online, further from Gaza, were not evacuated. The next kibbutz to the west was the kibbutz that stopped the terrorists from arriving into Or HaNer, where Nati lives, Kibbutz Erez. Nati and Kibbutz Or HaNer were moved on October 8th from Or HaNer to Tiberias. They were there for a month, and then they were offered to move from Tiberias to Jerusalem, to the Orient Hotel. Have you ever been to the Orient Hotel? Right? That place is now a refugees camp, or was for 3 months, a refugees camp for the people from Or HaNer. And Nati is the chair of Kihilat Sha'ar HaNegev, led by our dearest colleague, Rabbi Yael Vorgan. And when they were moved from Tiberias to Jerusalem, Yael made the connection between me and Nati, and we met in the lobby of the Orient Hotel, which didn't look anything like what you remember from the Orient Hotel's lobby. The walls were the same, but nothing else. And I sat there with Nati and with her husband, Damian. And from that meeting on, every Kabbalat Shabbat and every Shabbat morning, Nati and their younger son, Noam, were with us at Kol HaNeshama. And Noam would come and stand next to me and with the other children from Kol HaNeshama for opening the ark, closing the ark. And his job became to be holding my Siddur when I put the Torah scroll inside the Aron, and then I would give him a hug when we sang Derechei HaDerechei Noam. And a month ago, they returned to their home in Or HaNer. What does Hayom She'achrei mean? When you go back to your kibbutz, Or HaNer, just a few kilometers from Gaza, and the kids go to school, and some of their friends are not there anymore and will never be. And some of their friends will be there, but still are someplace else around Israel and not allowed to come back. What it meant for Nati is returning home is to go pick the lemons from the lemon tree in their yard. And Hayom She'acharei will be to know that this lemon tree will give lemons next year as well. And if we're talking about picking lemons, Debbie Levran is a member of our congregation. Maybe some of you know her or know her husband Tzvi, who is a tour guide that I think many of your congregations went around Israel with. She retired from being a lawyer in the Ministry of Welfare, Misrad HaRevacha in Israel. She retired, Debbie, just a few months ago, in August. She didn't know what she was going to do in her retirement. What she's been doing for the past 5 months, on top of worrying for her 3 children, Amit, Yaniv, and Noah, who were all 3 of them recruited to the army, she's been organizing our volunteering in agriculture twice a week, every week, for the past 4 months. 10 to 20 people on each group from Kol HaNeshama and from the area, and people from abroad who come and hear and ask, can we join? One of them is a very, very dear friend of mine, Rabbi Aaron Goldstein from London, that when he told me that he's coming to visit a month and a half after October 7th, and he asked, can I do anything with you? I said, okay, let's join the agricultural volunteering. And we planted broccoli. The name Aaron gave it is brocotherapy. It was brocotherapy. It was walking in the field and planting broccoli, one after the other, one after the other. And the day after will be when Aaron comes again with his congregation and show them, you see this field? Now we're going to plant another line of broccoli together. And my most deepest sense of Hayom She'acharei, and I hope this time I won't get into too many tears, my sense of Hayom She'acharei every day is when I drive my children to school, to the Yad B'Yad bilingual school in Jerusalem, that has been functioning incredibly in these months. And since it's a rather new building, they have enough shelters in the building, so they were able to return to regular schedule of the school as soon as anyone was allowed, because they have enough shelters. Many other schools around Jerusalem had to invite the children to come in shifts. A day yes, a day no, in the morning or in the afternoon, because they could only have so many students in the shelters. But the Yad B'Yad of all places in Jerusalem has enough shelters to have everyone coming every day from the first day it was allowed in Jerusalem. And every day when I drop them off at school. And every day when I pick them up, I don't drop them every day, I don't pick them every day, okay? You know what I mean. Every time I get the privilege of that my schedule allows me to drop them off at school and pick them up from school. And see their teachers and see their friends, Jews and Arabs, Palestinians in Western Jerusalem, Palestinians in Eastern Jerusalem, Palestinians from across the checkpoint leading to Bethlehem, from Bet Sahur and Bet Jalla. Some of their teachers were not allowed to come to school in the first few weeks because they're on the other side of the checkpoint. Some of their teachers couldn't come to school because they have little children who didn't have anywhere to go, and the other parent was in Miluim. And these teachers have to come to school and teach in the same class. And I was told an incredible story by one of my children's teacher, that in another class, the Jewish teacher was teaching and the Muslim teacher was there with her, and one of the children of the Jewish teacher walked in uniforms. He came back home from the army. And he asked his mother to come with him out for a coffee. And his mother said, I can't go, I'm teaching now. And the Palestinian teacher told her, of course you should go with him. He's your son, he came home. And she understood that as a mother, even though that son came into the class with uniforms, and I can only imagine what that meant for the Palestinian teacher, she understood that the mother has to go with the child that came home from the battlefield. What they didn't know is that the reason he called her to come out and go for a coffee was that at the coffee place, the other son who came home from Miluim was waiting. And my children came with us to many of the Hafganot in Jerusalem in the past few months. They The two young ones said they're not willing to come anymore. After one of these demonstrations, they saw how I was screaming, "Lo tiyeh leBen Gvir militia." Ben Gvir will not have his own militia. Because there was a proposition that there'll be a national force or something that will be directly under the supervision of Ben Gvir, and that got them scared. I think that really got them scared, not the militia of Ben Gvir, but seeing me screaming that. They prefer being with their Arab homeroom teacher, Palestinian homeroom teacher, and their Jewish homeroom teacher, and their friends who they might get along with or not get along with. It's okay, there are children in school. That's what happens. It's not heaven in that school. It's the normal life that we want to see. It's the day after we pray for. Will Esther live to see it? Will Karina come back to see it? Will Nati be able to really feel it also in Or HaNer, 7 kilometers from Gaza? Will Debbie's 3 children coming back from the army be willing to take part in this after what they have experienced? But my children are going to school. And on Motzei Purim, Shushan Purim in Jerusalem, in the courtyard of Kol HaNeshama, we're going to have an iftar meal for the families of our daughter's class. That's the day after that I'm waiting for. ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו